Welcome to Houston Sports Talk with your host, Robert Land.
That sound means we're getting into our time machine for Throwback Thursday. For the next few weeks, you can listen back to one of our favorite Houston Sports Talk interviews. I was thinking that with the NFL Conference Championship games this past Sunday, it'd be the perfect time to replay one of my favorite conversations this past year, my chat with Houston Oilers safety Vernon Perry. Hard for some of us to believe, especially me, but it's now 40 years ago he had that historic 4-interception game against the Chargers, putting the Oilers in the last conference title game we've seen from a Houston franchise. You're about to hear him tell stories about playing with Walter Payton, brushes with Willie Nelson, and of course, memories of the most unforgettable time in Houston's NFL history. You're not going to want to miss it. Let's jump in the Wayback Machine for this one.
Look out, football, here we come. Houston Oilers, #1.
Welcome to Houston Sports Talk with your host, Robert Land.
Houston has the Oilers, the greatest football team. We take the ball from goal to goal like no one's ever seen.
Thanks for listening to the best Houston sports podcast. If you're a first-timer, welcome aboard. And hey, it's always a joy and a privilege to welcome in a member of the Houston Oilers' iconic Luv Ya Blue team. On the line with me is Oilers safety Vernon Perry. And for those too young to remember, Perry played with the Oilers from 79 to 82. 40 years ago, he was the MVP of the most improbable and I'll say significant win of any Houston NFL franchise, Oilers or Texans. That win put the Oilers into the conference championship game, which was the last time a Houston team participated in a conference championship game. Vernon, does it feel like 40 years ago?
Oh, man, I wouldn't have knew until you just said 40 years. I thought it was just like maybe 5 or 10 years ago. So that's what it sounds like. You know, still having owning up to that record, man. It just seemed like yesterday I went out and made that big comeback for the Oilers.
I saw you back at the Robert Brazile roast at the Improv right before he got into the Hall of Fame, and just an incredible night with all the Oilers legends in one place. Earl Campbell was there, Pastorini, Bethea, Culp, White Shoes, on and on and on. What's it like when you guys get a chance to hang out?
Oh, man, it's like a reunion. I really love Pastorini because he's keeping us together as a team, friend, mother, father, and sister and brothers. He's keeping all us together, man, because without him, some of the guys would have been strayed off because he's allowing us to come back and do different things in the city. So when we see each other, man, it's like a fun thing. Like we were still on the team. And Bum Phillips was still the coach, you know, here in Houston. And, man, I mean, it's just, the city just embraced us, man. And when they see us in town, the Luv Ya Blue, man, they just love us, man. It's like we all of us still there in Houston, Texas.
Yeah, I want to talk about that in a bit. But you and Robert Brazile were teammates at Jackson State. How close are the two of you guys?
Man, me and Robert are real good friends. You know, he finally got into that NFL Hall of Fame, and he told me, he said, Vernon, man, I'm finna get in this Hall of Fame, and if I'm in, you in. As long as I'm in, you a part of me, so you a Hall of Famer too. So that meant a lot to me, and, we both went to Jackson State, and on that team that myself and Robert played on, we had 3 Hall of Famers. We had Robert Brazile, Jackie Slater, and Walter Payton, all on the same team at Jackson State. So that's a big plus for us to have 4 Hall of Famers from Jackson State, but 3 on the same team during the same year. So, Robert means a lot to me, and he finally got what he deserved because he should have been in there a long time ago. But like he tell me, he said, man, let me tell you something. Good Lord knows when it was time for me to go in. It was Super Bowl 52, and that's my jersey number, 52.
That's great. What was it like that day when you were there, right? You went to Canton?
Yeah, I was there. Oh man, he was so hyped, man. He had his family, and like you said, he was able to let his mom and dad see his accomplishment, going into the hall, which was a big plus for him. And he had his family and a lot of friends. And, I was there, and I feel pretty good because he got a chance to call my name and to be heard all over the world. So, that's a major step for him because he deserved it. One of the greatest linebackers that you ever want to play with. And plus, he's the reason that I ended up in Houston, because if he wouldn't have got me to Houston, I would have been out there in L.A. doing movies, been a movie star. So now he got me to come to Houston, and now I'm a cowboy. I wear cowboy boots and cowboy hats now, instead of being a movie star.
What was this being a movie star? I don't know if I've heard this story. You were thinking about going to be an actor?
Yeah, well, what happened is that I had 3 teams trying to get me. I was up in Canada, and, the Oilers, the Rams, and the Kansas City Chiefs. I was going to go to the Rams because Jackie Slater, who was my childhood best friend, was playing for the Rams. And Brazile was in Houston. So I had to, toss the ball up in the air, and whichever came out on top, that's where I was going. And Houston won the toss because, L.A. is for all the movie stars, and if you played football, you became an actor. So I figured, I might have been an actor instead of a cowboy, wearing cowboy boots and cowboy hats.
Yeah, you didn't even get drafted, right? You went to play for the Montreal Alouettes in the CFL at that time.
Right. What happened is when I came out of college, I signed as a free agent, and I was going to sign with Buffalo Bills, but I had went to show you how things work. Walter Payton, which is another one of my best friends, was playing for the Chicago Bears. He got me to sign a free agent contract with the Chicago Bears. I probably would have made that team, but you know how too many defensive backs, and you got to let somebody go. So I had got cut from Chicago, and I ended up going back to my hometown and finishing my college career, getting my degree. And I knew I was going to sign with the Buffalo Bills, but the Montreal Alouettes had a tryout in Houston. And I said, why not go try for it? Wasn't no pressure on me. I went to Houston, tried out, had a great day, and the Montreal Alouettes ended up signing me. Went up there for 2 years, and I was in the Grey Cup for 2 years. Won it the first year, lost it the second year to Warren Moon. I had records in the Grey Cup for the longest interception in the Grey Cup. I had 2 interceptions in the Grey Cup my first year. So, and then I ended up going the second year, and we played against Warren Moon, and we lost. And that was the year I ended up signing with Houston after that.
Now, you mentioned Robert Brazile, of course, from Jackson State, but when you came down to the Oilers, this was before the 79 season, so that was the season that you had the 4 interceptions against the Chargers, the year they got to their second conference championship game. But you guys weren't the only 2 on that team from Jackson State. Tight end Rich Castor and tackle Leon Gray were there. So you had 3 guys from Jackson State.
Yeah, we had 4 guys. We had Richard Castor, Leon Gray, myself, and Robert Brazile, all from Jackson State on that 79 team. And if you go back and look, they had a picture of me with all 4 Jackson State guys on the picture together, and they had me up in the air after the interception. That was a great game, man. It was like a dream come true, man. It was like everywhere Dan Fouts threw the ball, man. I was there.
It is intercepted by Vernon Perry, and the Frank Merriwell story ends. And just erase the name Merriwell. It belongs to Vernon Perry. 4 interceptions, and the Houston Oilers have pulled off a remarkable upset in San Diego.
I'm sure this will go down as one of the classic upsets of recent football history, Dick.
We had guys like Kenny Burroughs out. We had Dan Pastorini out, Earl Campbell out, but they never mentioned the defense. The defense wasn't hurt. So we stepped up that game and played well, and Gifford Nelson and Ron Carpenter played a good game, man, and we ended up coming out there victorious. We won that game, and it was like, wow.
Let me go back to before that game, actually, because I think this gets lost in everything that happened. It was a tough win over the Broncos, and you talked about everybody that went out. Campbell, Pastorini, and Kenny Burrow, your three main offensive weapons, all go down with the same injury, a pulled groin. What were you thinking as this game's going along?
See, we played against the Denver Broncos, and matter of fact, I better throw this in. The 3 playoff games that I played in, I had an interception against the Broncos, had 4 interceptions against the Chargers. Then I came right back and had 1 against Terry Bradshaw. So I had 6 interceptions in 3 games. But like you said, we had those 3 guys was hurt, and we was going into San Diego, and everybody just knew San Diego was just going to run over us. And with them 3 guys out, I'm telling you, Ron Carpenter and Gifford Nelson and the whole offensive team, they came to life, man. And they really took charge, and they won that game. Defense just held them to, 14 points? But it was amazing that we had guys on offense to step up. And that's what we needed because, it was Kenny Burrows, Dan Pastorini, and Earl Campbell. I mean, when those guys went out, we had no chance of winning it. But we stepped up that day, and the defense really stepped up and played a great game against a high-powered, powerful scoring offense.
Yeah, you mentioned that offense. First of all, just so people know, Earl Campbell, Pastorini, and Burrow, they were 80% of your offensive production that year. You were facing a Chargers offense with Hall of Fame QB Dan Fouts. He led the NFL in passing yards that year. The Chargers defense, and this gets lost in history too, was 5th in the league and had held 4 of their previous 5 opponents to 7 points or less. So that defense was really stronger than I think a lot of people might remember. Do you remember anything Bum said to you guys before the game in San Diego, or anything anybody that said that stands out?
He said, every man get a man, every man get a good man, or something like that. Brazile got that saying down, but every man get one man, every man get a good man, or something. Anyway, go out there and play your game. Just don't be nervous. Just go have fun, and we'll win. We'll win. But you know me, I was nervous my first year, so I was kind of like tuning everything out because I was like focusing on the game. But coming in as a rookie, and you know, a rookie on the field, and you got to go out there and play. And I had to cover the best receivers on the field. I had to cover Charlie Joyner. I had to cover the tight end. I think Winslow was hurt that game, but they had another tight end, Kevin Klein or something. They had some of the top wide receivers in the league, and I had to cover them. So my focus was on just covering them dudes. And, Eddie Boss called a good defense, but he did tell everybody this, though. And he didn't tell me. He said that he knew every time Dan Fouts was going to throw the ball, but he failed to tell me that. I wish he would have told me, because if he'd have told us where the ball was going, I'd have had 10 interceptions. But he didn't, and we had a good game. But like I say, it was our defensive line getting pressure on Dan Fouts that make him have to throw that ball real fast. And so happened when he threw it, it was like he was just throwing it to me. I was running the routes. But it was fun, though, man. And we came out with a victory, and that's all that matters.
Not only did you have the 4 interceptions, but you also had a blocked field goal, which you ran back. And not only the 4 interceptions, it's the 4 interceptions, Vernon, it's still a playoff record. No player in any game, not even, regular season game, has had more than 4. I mean, is that incredible to you? It's still the record?
It's still a record. It's, I had 4 interceptions and I had a blocked field goal. But see, they had drove us all the way down to probably the 5 or 10 yard line. And they was getting ready to kick a field goal, and I jumped over one of the players and got in and blocked the field, and so happened the ball bounced up in my hand, and I'm racing down the sideline. And Brazile and all them guys give me a lot of grief about the holder catching me, which, he was the fastest, probably the fastest guy on the San Diego team. He was a fast little guy. He called me, I think I got like 57 yards, and he ran me down. Well, he didn't run me down. He just was running side by side with me. But I was tired anyway, so make sure everybody know that I was tired.
All right, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Blocked, and Perry could go all the way. Only Fuller to beat. Vernon Perry at the 45. He is all the way to the 30-yard line of San Diego. Oh, my, what a turnabout.
How does that sound to hear that again?
Oh, man, that's pretty cool, man. You need to send me that voice thing. I need to put that on my phone every time somebody calls. Make sure Brazile hear that. But, his first thing come out of his mouth, man, you got ran down by a white boy. I said, yeah, but I was tired. But it was fun, though, man. Man, you wouldn't believe the love that we had on that team, man. When I'm coming in from Canada, not knowing what to expect, and I had guys like Curly Cup and Robert Brazile and all them guys, taking care of me because, we had guys like Karl Marx. Man, every time Karl Marx talked, everybody was like scared, man, And plus, if you're a rookie, and I was coming in to take another guy's job too. But Brazile did tell me this, though. He said, Vernon, he said, we got a good defense, but we missing one piece, and that's somebody to cover guys like Arjen Newsom, who's always beating us. Guys like that. We need somebody to cover him and make plays, make tackles, and that's why we got you. And I was like, oh, yeah? I said, yeah. He said, we needed a good, strong safety that can force the run and cover guys like Arjen Newsom. And that's when he sent the scouts up to Canada to scout me. And I was a perfect fit, man, and I loved it, man. And then when I got there, man, it was amazing, man. I'm in camp, and you might see Willie Nelson on the sideline, or the Gatlin brothers, or George Stray, or anybody down there talking to Bum while we at practice. I'm like, is this practice? I mean, it was like fun, man. I mean, it was like a family, man. I've never been around on a team that made me feel like, man, it was like just family out there playing the game.
That's something else. I want to get back to just the whole Oilers experience in a little bit, but one last thing about that Chargers game. You mentioned Rob Carpenter, who replaced Earl Campbell at running back, and Carpenter had sprained an ankle 2 days before the game. The ankle was in such bad shape that he was seen, according to what I read, Vernon, the night before the game, coming down stair steps side by side. From the reports, he was on crutches right at that point, right?
Yeah, man, he was on crutches the night before. And, man, that boy, he got in the game and ran that ball like he'd never been on crutches. But every now and then they would pop him on that ankle, and you could see him dragging himself down the field. It was hurting. He had I hate to say it on the radio, but he had a hell of a game.
A draw play to Carpenter. He's got running room at the 20, and he's out of bounds at the 11-yard line. A first down for Houston. That man's a miracle in motion.
Well, when I talked to Bum Phillips last night, I said, Bum, maybe you'll get a miracle by tomorrow. And he looked very tired and very sad and just shook his head. I think maybe he got one in Rob Carpenter back from that sprained ankle of just a couple of days ago and running as if he's not even hurt.
Man, he did an outstanding job, man, running the ball. And Clifford Nelson did a great job. And, man, he hung in there, and we got the victory. And like I said, Ron Carpenter, man, he came down them steps. I'm like, oh, Lord, everybody said Earl is out. Now Carpenter is out. But we had guys like Booby Clark, Ronnie Coleman. Those guys stepped up, too. I think Booby Clark came in and scored a 3 or 4 yard touchdown. Down on the 5-yard line, he scored a touchdown. So we had guys on offense to step up and do what they had to do to get that win.
You were on such a roll. You mentioned it the week after the Chargers game. You go to the Steelers for that conference title game. I'm going to play what happened on the very first play from that very first possession for the Steelers in that game.
Good protection. Intercepted. Vernon Perry. 40 might go all the way. Perry at the 35, the 30. Vernon Perry. Touchdown, Houston. 75 yards. The star of the win at San Diego, Vernon Perry, saves something for Pittsburgh.
Did you think it was your day that day after that first interception? Did you feel like, hey, we've got this one after what happened the week before?
Oh, man, when I got that interception, first thing I said, man, we going all the way. You know, the offense had pumped up, and, you know, we went out, man, the defense was playing, and we had the first pass Bradshaw threw, I picked it off. And I went down the right side, touchdown. And I was like, oh, man, I had one interception against Denver, then came back and did 4 with San Diego, and now 1 with Pittsburgh. That's 6 interceptions in 3 games. I'm like, wow, man, I couldn't believe that myself. And to me, that's a record. 6 interceptions in a playoff,
yeah,
you know, in 3 games. So I look at that's a record to me. For 40 years, that's been a record.
That Steelers game, of course, will be remembered for the Renfro catch in the end zone that wasn't. What do you remember about what happened? Were you watching the play, or were you watching your defensive coaches when that play happened?
I wasn't watching that play, but I saw it. You know, they was talking about it. They say he came down and caught the ball, and from going back to this day, looking at it, he came down with a catch. And, you know, if we'd have had instant replay then, that where the refs can go back and overrule that call, it would have been a touchdown. And, you know, we'd have been up. We'd have, you know, been on the board again. But like I say, the Steelers, you know, were the team of the 70s and part of the 80s, man. And, hey, give them their credit. They had a lot of good athletes on that team. And we got there. But like Baum said, he knocked on the door, and then he said the next year we was going to kick the son bitch in. So we tried. We was almost there.
If Renfro's catch is called the touchdown, do you beat the Steelers?
We going to the Super Bowl. I think the offense would have scored some more points, and we went on and beat Pittsburgh. We beat them in Houston 6-0 during the regular season, and man, if we'd made that. We'd got that call, I think it would have helped us or helped our morale, where we would have went in and, you know, probably played a whole lot better. So that touchdown really took the life out of us. You know, when you make a call like that and you don't get it, I mean, you know, you start second guessing. And I think Baum was just like, not again, man. They're getting it some kind of way. But it was fun, though. I give them their credit. They won and went on to the Super Bowl, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl.
You just mentioned the pep rally that Bum spoke at, and you guys touched down from the game against Pittsburgh. This is the second year in a row, but you weren't there for the first pep rally. What I'm going to do, I want you to listen to this for a minute. I've got Dan Pastorini and Elvin Bethea talking about the pep rally. And after we hear from them, I just want to kind of get your thoughts on what you remember from the pep rally. But here those two guys are.
What people don't understand, sure, they saw the end result with all the people in the Astrodome. But when we walked through the airport at Intercontinental, you couldn't – there was an aisle way of about 4 feet where we could just walk down the aisles. People were 5 and 10 deep in the terminal. The buses were outside. When we drove outside, people were parked along the JFK Boulevard going into the airport, all the way down JFK Boulevard, all the way down the Beltway, all the way down 45. There wasn't a car going in either direction, with the exception of our motorcade of 2 buses and a couple limos and a police motorcade, a police escort. And there had to be 300 to 400,000 people out there on the streets honking their horns and cheering us going down the freeways, both years. And then in 79, the people in the Dome, I think, were about 30,000 more than original in 1978.
Hey, that was one outstanding, unbelievable I mean, there's no words that could express that feeling that we had coming back. If you're losing to Pittsburgh, coming back not knowing that they told us to leave our cars at the airport. They were going to take us on bus. We had no idea. And when we came into the dome, even before we got to the dome, people that were at the airport, the lines were long, horns were blowing, lights were flashing. And when we got to the dome, they took us to the dome, and I could not believe when they opened it, let us out. And here's 60,000 people standing up at the rafters. And many people said, "What's the greatest time you ever had, or greatest thrill?" I said, "The 1978 and 79 years we came. Best year I ever had." And I still remember that. That's the best thing that ever happened to me. I had the Hall of Fame and all that, but just to seeing the people there, you're talking about 60,000 plus people. And you're a losing team. You lost the game. Just think what would have happened if we'd won the game. And, as one of the pilots said, we wouldn't have been able to land the plane in Houston. It was the greatest thrill of my life. And even today, I see people that were there, and grandmothers, and of young guys, the people that I meet, and they said they want to know about the old Oilers, and said you had to been there.
That's pretty amazing. What do you remember about that? What do you remember about coming back to those two pep rallies that Dan and Elvin were describing?
Well, first of all, I'm glad you talked to my big brother, Dan Passerini, and my daddy, Elvin Bate. They're so right, man. When we landed at the airport, man, there were people everywhere. We got on the bus, and we going down the freeway. I mean, people parked on the side of the road, coming out from the airport, on the side of the road, honking their horn. I mean, all the way to the stadium. Man, we pull up at the stadium, man, cars and people everywhere. And like I said, when we pulled up in that dome, man, I could still see it, man, flashing lights, people everywhere. I mean, that place was jam-packed. And I can remember Earl Campbell getting off. I think he was riding on a motorcycle. And Brazile, I think he rode a horse or something. But, man, it was an experience. That's why I say, man, a kid leaving Canada, coming to a place like Houston, man, I was still in shock. Man, I couldn't believe that this was the love that you got playing for a team in Houston, man. When I said I was going to be a movie star, man, that couldn't beat the feeling that I had when we got back to Houston and saw all those folks in the dome, man. I mean, they were everywhere, man. Love, man. I'm telling you, man, it's hard to say how it felt, man, because it was one feeling that I would never, never forget. And just, we lost the game, but we won though. We won the crowd. We won the fans, and they loved us, man. And they knew what kind of Houston Oilers team we was. And man, I tell you something. You can't express or go back and just tell how you really feel, because man, it was a feeling that it's in your heart forever. And just to be around a coach like Bum Phillips, man, it was great, man. It was great, man. He was just like a father to me, and I miss him to this day.
Tell me about your defensive line coach for the Oilers. There's a little baby-faced kid named Wade Phillips, right?
Yeah, he was a baby. He was on defense. I really didn't have much to do with Wade because our coach was Bob Gamble. So Wade and Bum used to tell our coach, man, you take them crazy nuts back there, because that's all me, Casey, Ryan Field, and Stemrick, Carter Hart, Willie Tuller. Man, we were some bad boys back then. We played good together, but we had a coach. Man, he was just as bad as we were. But he knew what he was doing, Bob Gamble. I mean, man, he was great. He was a good coach. He was like, if it wasn't Bond, it was Bob Gamble. And we used to go out and play for him. And Wade was on the defensive line, so Wade was already getting his hand full because he had guys like Curly Cup and Elmer that he had to deal with. So we wanted to top the mess with Wade. because he had to deal with Curly Cup. And, Curly Cup, one of the more mean guys. Wade was younger than Curly, so can you imagine what Wade trying to go through with a guy like Curly Cup?
That secondary, not the Hall of Famers of the front seven, but how good did you feel that group was with J.C. Wilson and Reinfeld and Stemrick and all that group?
First, when I got there, they had J.C. Stemrick, Mike Reinfeld, and they had a guy, I can't think of his name, Billy Curry or something. And they was, and C.L. Whittington and Al Johnson. And they was looking for a good, strong safety. And I came in and I won that position. Man, we put it together back there. And Reinfeld, that was 1 year. I think that's the year he had the 13 interceptions. He had 13 interceptions, I think.
Wow.
And I think Greg Stemrick made the Pro Bowl. I would have made the Pro Bowl, but if Donnie Shell wouldn't have made it, I would have made the Pro Bowl. But we had a great team back there. J.C. Wilson, he was on corner. He had to deal with guys like Lynn Swan every game. So you know how his game had to be. But we had a good secondary. And we played back there. We played together back there. And we all loved each other back there, man. We weren't just on the team together. We was friends, too. And to this day, we still friends, except for we missing one back there, and that's Greg Stemmer. He's gone on to be with the Lord, and, he was like a brother to all of us, and he kept us laughing back there. And we had a great team, great secondary.
You mentioned playing with Jackie Slater. His son Matthew plays for the Patriots. He helped beat Jackie's old Rams team in the Super Bowl. How crazy is it to see that happen?
Oh, man, like I told you, man, me and Jackie grew up together in like a block from each other. And Jackie and I was best friends. We played, elementary, junior high, high school, college, and wherever he was going to college, I was going. And we played college together, and that's why I say we almost played the Rams together. It was between Houston and L.A., and I ended up coming to Houston. But just to have a son playing in the NFL is a great accomplishment. I mean, you had somebody in your family that carry on your name. And I got a chance to meet Jackie's son at one of the NFLPA meetings, and he's a good kid, man. He's just like his dad. And the one thing that he made me feel good about, he said, Mr. Perry, you know what? My house, we used to always talk about Vernon Perry. I'm like, yeah, my dad used to talk about you all the time. I said, wow, man, because I thought Jackie had forgot me, but he said, my dad, man, talks about you all the time. So, man, that made me feel good. I got a little touch for a second. A little tear dropped out, but just to hear that kid say that my name was mentioned in his house a lot meant a lot to me.
That's fantastic. That's great. I got a big smile on my face with that, and I also got a big smile on my face because the next thing I wanted to ask you about is Walter Payton, and I had a chance to see him address my school, the University of Missouri, when I was going to school there. He went to address the football team and talked for 45 minutes to those guys about life and about football, but it was mostly about life with Walter. And it was such an amazing experience to get to see that in person, and he got a chance to shake his hand after that. What are your memories about playing with Walter and just, Walter himself?
Walter was a year ahead of me, and when I got to Jackson State, I got a chance to be good friends with Walter. If it weren't for Walter, I wouldn't have got my chance to go to Chicago Bears and going on to play pro ball, because he was a good friend of mine. And Walter used to come back to Jackson after he played during the off season, and he would always come by and pick me up, and he would go hunting, we would go fishing. And Walter took me somewhere in the woods one time, and we were shooting a gun. And he didn't tell me, Vernon, don't hold your eye up to the scope. He didn't tell me that. So I'm shooting the gun, and I got my eye right on the scope, right? I shoot the gun. What do you think the gun do? Kick back. It kicked back, kicked me off the porch, and he fell off the porch with me. And I got blood coming out of my eyes, and he's sitting over there laughing. I told you not to put the scope too close, but he didn't tell me that. But, man, just to watch Walter Payton, man, I mean, it was unbelievable. I used to see Walter run over guys, hit him with that forearm. And, you know, Walter's forearm used to swell up. And you could see him doing it after the game where they'll go in and they'll take a needle or something and drain that pulse or something out of Walter's arm where he's been hitting guys with that forearm till that got to the point where it would swell up. Man, just to see a guy like that run. And I'm so honored to be in a play with two of the greatest running backs in the NFL, Walter Payton and Earl Campbell. I got a chance to play against both of those guys. And when Walter got his record for the most yards in NFL, I was with the New Orleans Saints. I wasn't on the field, but I saw him break that record in New Orleans. So that was a big plus for me, too. So just, man, I'm telling you, man, it was never a dull day on Jackson State campus with Walter Payton around. He either pulling some kind of trick on you, either biting you on the back of your shoulder, or he either up in a tree ready to jump down and scare you, or he was full of, ooh, man, Walter Payton had stuff going on all the time. But, you know, that was like my brother, man, and I miss him a lot, too.
I want to go back to that Chargers game for a second. How crazy is it when you think about it today that neither team between the Chargers and the Oilers are in the same city? It's weird, right?
Shoot, the Chargers, man, you know, they should have stayed in San Diego, but they moved to L.A. Why? I don't know, because they had some of the best fans in the world. And I can understand why Bud Adams wanted to move, because he wanted to get a new stadium and he wanted to host the Super Bowl, just like McNair did. He wanted his own stadium and he wanted to be able to host the Super Bowl because that's where the money was. And when he left the city of Houston, he ended up building a stadium. And that's all I think he wanted was a stadium so he could host the Super Bowl. Because the Astrodome, it was a good place, but, man, it was like concrete. A lot of knee injuries, shoulder injuries, and ain't wasn't nothing up under that turf but concrete. But you're still standing, ain't it?
Yeah, still standing, barely. It's hanging in there. Let me ask you, because you mentioned Bum Phillips, how often did you guys speak after you left football, and what's the big thing that maybe he told you or a story that you have of being around Bum on an everyday basis?
You know what? After I retired, I still remained close to myself in Brazil because, you know, I left the Oilers. I ended up going to New Orleans playing ball. And then I retired from New Orleans, went back home, and started teaching school and decided I wanted to go back to Houston. And when I went back to Houston, I started seeing Bum, and we started getting close. And matter of fact, I've been to his ranch a few times, and his wife, Debbie, man, they treat me like I'm part of it. Man, me and Debbie, I used to call Bum once or twice a month just to say hello. And, you know, and then we'll go down there, and I still got a pair of cowboy boots Bum gave me and a belt buckle that I would forever hold in my possession. And it was like, man, Bum was just like a father to us, man. I mean, you would have to play for Bum to know who Bum Phillips really was. And I think half of the time, I think Wade was probably a little jealous because he didn't know he had so many brothers. He had brothers from everywhere. Everybody loved Bum. And I was kind of like, one is Bum giving Wade as much love as he giving his players, man, because man, he was just like he was your father, man. You know, I miss him, man. And I'm serious, man. When I tell you, I called Bum and talked to him, I would call Bum at least twice a month just to say hello. And we'd talk, and he'd be happy to hear from me, and he'd be saying, Vernon, I'm waiting on you to come down now. I said, I'm coming, Coach. And, you know, me and Brazile went down on Kenny Burroughs. We all went down to see Bum. But like I say, I miss him, but he did something. He did something in Houston that nobody else could do. He brought a bunch of guys together as brothers, as a team, as friends that nobody else had ever done. And that's what I like about it. He brought all of us together. And we're still together as the Luv Ya Blue Houston Oilers family.
What do you tell people who didn't live in Houston while you played here? I mean, what was it like to live in Houston during that time and be a Houston Oiler?
Man, during that time, man, the city was crazy, man. If you wanted a car, all you do was go to this dealership. They would give you a car. If you wanted cowboy boots, if you wanted a cowboy hat, man. I mean, the city was crazy, man. They loved the Houston Oilers. So if you weren't a Houston Oilers fan, you should have been one. You should have moved to Houston then because, man, the city was Houston Oilers crazy. I mean, everywhere you go, you see Houston Oilers, cowboy boots. Bum bought the cowboy boots back out. It was a cowboy town. And I think Bum bought the Cowboys back into Houston. Where people were wearing cowboy hats, cowboy boots, belt buckles. I mean, Bum bought all that. And one thing he did tell everybody, don't wear your hat inside the house. Always take your hat off. Because you have never seen Bum in the dome with a hat on. But if he was outdoors, he had a hat on. If he was in the dome, he didn't have a hat on.
Well, last thing I just want to tell you, and I know my fans know this, but, you know, Luv Ya Blue happened when I was 7, 8 years old, and it's such an important memory in my life. And I went on to have a career in sports, and I think my love of sports in a lot of ways was born from that. I had a chance to meet Bum before he passed away, and I got a chance to tell him that as well. And Bum was Bum because he started asking me questions about my life instead of vice versa. But, you know, I just can't tell you enough what you guys meant to me, what the Oilers meant to me at that time, and the memories that I still have. And it's almost impossible, like you say, to explain it to people that weren't there. Like Dan says, you just can't. You can't do it as hard as you try.
Yep, and, you know, like I say, Bum did something that nobody else can do. He brought a group of men together, and we're still together as a family. He's gone. A lot of us, a lot of the guys are gone, but guess what? We all still a family. And I will always remember that, and I would take it with me wherever I go, that it was one of the best time of my life was the day that I became a Houston Oiler.
I can't think of a better way to end it than that. Thank you so much, Vernon, for doing this. Thanks so much for taking the time.
All right. You're welcome. Have a good one.
No one, and I just have to say no one except the hardiest of Oilers fans gave these Oilers a chance. And yet here they are about to celebrate with one of the best victories that they're ever going to have a chance to carry home.
You're listening to Houston Sports Talk.
Don't forget to follow Houston Sports Talk on Facebook and Twitter. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Spotify, the Google Podcast app, or the Stitcher app. You can support us by giving us a 5-star review on iTunes or by telling your friends about us. Spread the word, everybody. Thanks for listening.
'Cause we're the Houston